please, I want to know all of me.
About
That's
my
me,
knees?
myself, and I. No, I don't want to know about your knees. Where did you go to school and did you study acting?
You're gonna go there, aren't you?
I totally am, because I'm
We're gonna
curious.
start right in.
Well, I'm really curious. Like,
I went to Brown.
You didn't go to Brown.
Oh, I didn't, did I?
Where did you go?
I went to Harvard.
He went to Harvard.
And
He went to Harvard.
I didn't know anything about acting.
Did you like, were you an acting major? Is that what it's called at Harvard?
I knew nothing. I went there to, my uncle had gone there, so I wanted to go since I was 11. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I figured when I got there and I met all the young people, we would figure out what we wanted to do together.
Is that the way it went?
That did not happen.
I was going to say, that was not my college experience.
That did not happen. Everyone knew what they wanted to do, or so they said. And I felt a little less than. And they kind of made me feel a little less than.
And it was because you didn't know?
I didn't know. And I wanted to find out, and I was not going to rest until I figured it out.
And by what year did you figure it out?
I ran track my first year, and so I said that I wanted, if I met the students there, then I would figure it out. We'd figure it out together. And but running track, I was with the same group of guys all the time. So I was a high hurdler. So I finished the last hurdle in my freshman year and got my varsity letter. And I said, that's it. Enough, no more competitive athletics. I'm done. And I'm going to go and I'm going to do shows, because I had a small role in a senior play. I'd never done any theater or anything before. A small role in the senior play in high school. Such a great time that the drama teacher made me promise that I would continue. So I came over the last hurdle in my freshman year. I said, that's it. Came back my sophomore year. And I said, every time I do a show, I'll meet a new group of people. So that's why I got into acting. And after my second show, my aunt saw it and said, you should do that, Courtney. Light bulb. I didn't even think about it until that time.
You were sort of just experimenting and meeting new people.
That's all it was. That's all it was. So that's how I got into acting at Harvard. But Harvard was not.
And then you went on and studied.
And I took a year off because I was burnt out, and I was worked on the midnight shift, security guard at the Museum of Fine Arts. And but I knew I wanted to go to drama school, so I walked the galleries at night and in front of the John Singer Sargent painting and in the Japanese wing, and I did my audition pieces for 9 months.
Amazing.
So, and after 9 months, I said, I have to say them to somebody. I'm a little through with the Japanese wing. So.
Amazing. I remember that time.
So, but yeah, Harvard.
And then you went to Yale?
Yes, and my girlfriend at the time and I both applied. She was in San Francisco and I was in Boston, and we got in, and they didn't know. They didn't know we knew each other, which is pretty cool. Did you go? You went to Brown?
I went to Brown.
Now, Tracee, you went to Brown.
I went to Brown University.
You went to Brown University, and you're proud of it.
I am.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel proud of Harvard?
I do.
Yeah. Sounds good. It's got a good ring to it.
It does. I'm coming up on my 35th next year.
I just had my 20th.
Yes, so we've dated ourselves right there. So
I'm okay with it.
I am too. That's why I said it. So you went to Brown, and did you start there? Did you know? Had you been an actress?
No, I didn't know. I was actually
like me.
I was extremely shy.
Really?
I was extremely shy, and in high school, as a high schooler, you had to do different things, and I was forced to do a play, and I went so far as to
forced to do a play.
We all had to try everything, and I went all the way to the headmaster to explain that I thought it was unfair to force a student to perform if they were frightened of it.
Right.
And she disagreed, and I did it anyway. It was the Pirates of Penzance.
Were you the pirate?
I don't remember what I was, but I went so far as, and I was so bold that I mouthed the words but wouldn't make any sound, and I did all just to make a point.
To be spiteful.
To be spiteful. I was just so shy. And then when I got to Brown, I was trying to figure out, we call it concentration there as opposed to major, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to study. And I remember I was taking a theater history class. I thought it would be fun to learn history through theater. and something opened up for me. And then I remember
Performance-wise, or?
just in terms of my love and connection with performance. And I then auditioned for an acting class. And the audition itself, even though I was terrified, was the thing that drew me in. And I remember it specifically. The exercise was, there's a sentence, there's a man on a roof, and he's going to jump off. And we had to come back to the room and tell everybody that same sentence 3 different ways. And
To get the person from not jump off?
No, just to tell. It's like we saw the guy that was on the roof that was going to jump, and we came back to a group of people to say, there's a guy on the roof, and he's going to jump. And it was fascinating, and I did it funny, terrified, and I can't remember what the third one was. And I remember finishing and thinking, that was so much fun.
Wow.
And a light bulb went off in
something?
me.
An exercise from an exercise.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, and then I sort of went on that journey, and I discovered that like all the things that I was afraid of, all the things that I didn't like about myself, all the things that I liked about myself, I was able to use. Everything came into play as an actor.
Isn't that something? What if that teacher of yours had not encouraged you or told you, no, you're going to do it anyway. You're going to get on stage anyway.
Right?
What if she hadn't nudged you in that direction?
In what direction would I have gone? That's such an interesting thought. Those small moments, right?
I know.
So now that your father's got to wear a hat in these pictures, I'm gonna have to change the whole theme. The costumes, the backdrop. I'm gonna lose the deposit for the Penguin Wrangler.
It got left to the last minute.
No.
Why don't you let me help you out this year with the photo shoot?
Blackish, how did Blackish happen?
Blackish happened, Kenya Barris, who created the show, he wrote on Girlfriends, and we were friends peripherally and sort of connected from then until now. And he would every once in a while, when he had a new pilot or a project, share it with me for my opinions and sort of what I thought. And he called me and said, I wrote something, and I think I wrote it for you. And as an actor,
That's always fun.
it's fun, but I've never believed it.
Got it.
So I was like, interesting. I mean, I saw a breakdown once that said Tracee Ellis Ross type, and they wouldn't see me.
That's pretty frightening.
It's kind of scary.
Wait a minute, that's me
I was like,
there.
but I can do it really well.
Right.
I swear I can play Tracee Ellis Ross.
We don't
No,
want
we
you.
don't want you.
We
We don't want you.
Somebody
we want
like
your type.
you.
Yeah. Anyway, so
That's very funny.
he said that, I read it, and I was really intrigued. And I think the first thing that jumped off the page for me was that this was a couple that loved each other. And she did not seem like a typical paper-thin wife responding to the husband's story, but that she had her own world, her own life, and a fullness about her that was based in her own experience. And then within that was this love and connection between the two of them.
Yeah, that's what we see.
That's what you see when you watch the show?
Yeah, that's what we
I
see.
like that.
Yeah, we see the fullness, the independence, but the interconnectedness, and how, and that's where the humor comes from, because the basis of the love and the understanding, and then from that you're crazy, you know.
Yes, which is why we're a couple suited for each other.
Right.
I had your job. I know the drill. The police commission determined the officers acted in self-defense. The officers were scared. There were 7 of them with guns up against one mentally ill woman with a knife.
Johnny, I tried.
They shot her in the back.
American Crime Story, People versus OJ. How did that come about?
The two producers came to Ryan and with this project, and Ryan's blessing, of course, got the thing, brought the thing to FX. And so my folks said, why don't you go and sit down with Ryan and Brad, and we talked for about almost 2 hours, and you don't think anything of that. We have a nice conversation.
We're also James. Like, you don't think
Come
anything of anything. I know it's so funny.
Please.
Okay, we'll see.
Please. So we met, we talked.
So sad.
We talked for about 2 hours, and I was like, okay, I gotta go, take the garbage out. Okay. So, and then I sat down with Nina, and she and I talked for the same amount of time. We, talking about all kind of wonderful things, and I understood that the project was going to be, quite remarkable because they're gonna get underneath it.
They were going to lean in.
They were going to lean in, and with their So.
Let me ask you a question, because one of the things that's been so riveting watching the show, I remember all of it, but I don't remember any of it, it seems, which I think is fascinating. And there's a thing that you bring to Johnny Cochran that obviously is your craft, your skill, but how much of it is your point of view? How much of it is what you remember? How much of it is the research that you did or didn't do? I'm so curious about that when you're playing a real life character.
It's a good question. It's Tracee, I didn't know him at all.
No.
And nor did I follow the
You
trial.
didn't?
I followed O.J. Simpson.
Right.
I was a huge O.J. Simpson fan from when he was at USC. And then when he went to Buffalo in that cold weather, those are the days where wherever you were sent, that's where you went. I think it wasn't John Elway when people said, I'm not going there.
Don't know any of the references you're talking about,
Anyway.
but I'm following you.
Anyway, so when the Bronco chase happened, I was watching the final NBA finals in Sacramento at Mario Van Peebles' Panther. We were there doing that. And you saw the Bronco chase happen. I was said, no, that's not. No.
Oh God.
I was hurt to my soul.
Oh my goodness.
And
oh
so
my goodness.
I couldn't. I literally. And then when Lance Ito put it on television, I couldn't take it. So I just did not watch it. Thank God I was busy. So I was, going hither and yon and doing stuff. And so I would touch it and come out, and they're still doing it. And so when it came to me, I said, how am I going to do this? I had about 10 seconds of when I found out they wanted me to do it. I said, oh, wow, oh. And then the angst began, of course, of how and what's the first thing that I should do. And there's, how do you play somebody that everybody knows?
So interesting.
Everybody knows them.
And
those
has
are,
a real...
And has a real clear and
Yeah.
a point of view. And so that's when I know I really listened to my spirit. And I said, I heard, don't watch any footage.
Okay.
So I didn't watch anything. I didn't want to talk to anyone. So I didn't seek out, Miss Dale Cochran. And, I said, I'm going to read as much as I can.
Interesting.
And so, because I want to catch, and I've done this before when I was on stage when I had to do a South African young boy in Athol Fugard's My Children, My Africa. I know nothing about South Africa at the time. And so I found I need a kernel. Just give me a little kernel, something about the person to bring me in. And so when I'm sitting around and let me see, I'm back in.
Right.
Just a little something that keys me when I'm drifting, and I can get myself back in. And I read that Johnny his mother recognized that he was the one of the of her children that was going to go out into the larger world and so and impact it greatly. And so she placed him in white schools early on, and to get him exposed to a different world. And that's what my parents did. There was a young man who had a scholarship. Who was at Detroit Country Day School, and advised my parents. I went to the boys' clubs.
So did you find that spot where you converged?
Yes.
Right.
I found that, and that was because I knew once we started shooting, we were going to be doing 3 and 4 episodes at the same time. You know how it goes.
Oh man.
And 4 and 5 cameras. And they were going to be flying, and I wouldn't have no time to do any kind of homework.
No, so you have to have a place to jump in.
I gotta have a place to jump in.
There's a prayer I say, that part of me that is. Yeah.
So I went right there.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to worry about what other people think and whether I should be doing this and I should be doing that. I turned that sound off.
And was there a conscious choice on the part of the producers? I know you said that after those conversations, they were willing and wanted to go underneath. Was the underneath specifically the current of race, or was that just naturally a part of the case and that is inevitably what was there?
Tracee, they cast this thing well. They went after the best actors for the
come
parts
on, it's extraordinary.
that they could find that matched up with them. So when you look at those pictures, the real person and the person, it's just uncanny.
It's uncanny.
It's uncanny. And so they knew what they had, and so then they left us alone.
Amazing.
They literally left us alone.
And when you guys, for example, I'm sorry, I'm jumping is the word I'm looking for.
Yes. You're jumping.
There's so many. I mean, I literally I was writing down notes because I knew we were going to be talking, but there were, in the courtroom scenes, was there a lot of letting those moments run free, or was it a lot of reverse shot, and really picking stuff up, or did they really let it go? Because there's some moments between you guys as actors that I'm like, but they did this through coverage, and you all were so. We were
in the zone.
It was like a play, though, the way you are.
We were in the zone. There was nothing was conscious, but because the actors and the directors were in sync completely, so that things started to just happen. Even though we were flying at the speed of sound, and Tracee, when I actually found out that on my coverage, everyone found out that there's going to be 5 cameras with the
jury.
What's it called? What's this thing called?
Jib.
The jib.
Crane.
The crane coming in, and 2 and 3 guys on little stools that move back and forth, holding cameras, and a steady cam. And on my coverage, they started all moving. And so much so that I couldn't see the gentleman playing Lance Ito. I literally couldn't see him. On my close-up, a page and a half monologue, and so it threw me, and they all knew that they should have said something to me first. But it threw me, but I said to myself, it's not gonna happen again. I'm gonna be ready from this point on.
No matter what happens.
No matter what happens. But because of that, everyone was so, when they saw me lose my place, and they all went, and that's something else, that all the actors were like this.
You can feel it. It's really
all like this.
But that is where it happens, in that connection.
But it's people say, well, how do you, there's no rehearsal, and how do you? I mean, we're all good at this point in jumping in. Everyone knows how to jump in with a purpose and with a focus. We do all our homework at home, but when we come in,
so our process is totally different.
Tell me about your process.
It's so interesting, though. I mean, it's a complete opposite. We don't do homework at home, which I have done on other projects, but the pace that we work on Blackish, I mean, it's not that we have to keep up with shooting 2 or 3 episodes at the same time, but we're shooting an episode every 5 days. We do 14 and 16-hour days. There's no way you can go home and learn lines, because you need to go home and go to sleep. So I have figured out systems like I ordered 2 lunches so I can eat dinner before I leave work, take my makeup off, so that when I get home I can actually just go to bed. And so it all happens, and for me, especially with Anthony and I, the magic happens in almost the not preparation. By the time you've been an actor this long, the muscle of learning lines is easy. It's easy. Which is strange.
But that's only because, and I'm going to jump in and interrupt you. That's only because at this point you know each other, and you know your characters inside and out. So you don't want to think about it anymore.
No.
You don't need to think about it anymore. And you know exactly what you're going to say. I wouldn't say this. Bring something else.
It's a really interesting process when, I mean, now I've done it before, because on Girlfriends I went this long. I went so long.
How long has it been now?
We did 8 years on Girlfriends. And to be the same person for that long, it becomes, talk about that part of me known as. But on Blackish, so much of the magic happens in the moment. You know,
Isn't that beautiful?
it's the most delicious experience.
beautiful?
I love working with Anthony because we have very similar styles of going with it.
Yes.
And we both know our lines.
Right.
We both, you know, so if you have the basis of the same kind of professionalism and the same respect for the craft of what we're doing,
Yes.
that no matter how much we play, when you hear the A word,
Come back
we're
to it.
in.
Right.
And it's magic, but so much happens. And we on our show balance this weird, heavy topics with comedy. And I don't know if you ever saw Anthony on, was it The Shield?
No, I didn't see him on the
Why
show.
can't I think? He's an amazing dramatic actor.
I've been taking arguments on purpose just to win a big one, and getting a gun is a big one.
Fine. You want a big one? You can have a urinal.
Too late. The SS urinal has sailed. We're getting a gun. Ba-bang, ba-bang.
Anthony's a wonderful dramatic actor, but people know him for his comedy and his broadness. And I think both of us have this quality that is what I love so much about playing as an actor, is the ability to slide in and out of all the ways that we dance and all the colors.
Because you got to laugh through the pain too. I mean, that's why the show is so beautiful.
That's fun.
Because you have to, you know, this is, as a people, we have gone through so much, and I was 7 and 8 when Martin Luther King was shot, and Malcolm. I was 5 when Malcolm X, and Bobby Kennedy and John. I mean, how did our parents survive through?
And hold on, thrive,
and
through.
thrive.
This is the part that always baffles me.
Well, you know, go ahead, go be baffled. Go
Well,
ahead.
there are times when I
Baffled.
think of being a black person in this country,
Right,
being a woman.
right.
There's a moment in your show when he says in 1988, that was not considered rape.
Right.
And you imagine that at that time, 1988, I was alive.
Right.
A wife was considered the property of her husband,
Right.
and that was not considered rape.
Right.
You think of the Robert Shapiro character in this piece that you are in, saying, "Please don't. Don't do this now," as if it is you being burdensome. And how come you can't just leave this alone? This race thing.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You know, or how courageous of Blackish to be touching on these topics. And when you think from internal experience, is it courageous or is it just honest?
Well, what a beautiful thing that on a television comedy show that's seen by millions, you know, every week, that we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, for the longest time,
We
as
have
you
not.
know, there was no. Not only we could talk about it, and we talked about it, and behind, you know, our parents talked about it, and we heard it, just like the children in your show were like,
What does
are they
this mean?
talking? What are they saying?
Yes.
You know, but
Why are
now
they
we're
angry?
watching that conversation happen on television in a context that we can actually watch, and all people can watch it, black, white.
And I think that's one of the things that is amazing to me watching. So Blackish is set in current times. So doing a police brutality episode in current times when kids are watching our show, they, you know, it gives them an access point to have these kinds of conversations as a family. That's one of the things I love. Our show is a family show. People
It
watch
is.
it as a family.
Yes, yes.
And you can.
Right.
And we have all these different generations. It's character based, so we're not touching on these things because they're circumstantial or situations, but because this is what these people would be interacting with. What's amazing to me watching the OJ, People versus OJ, is how similar these topics are, how not so different so much is. I also recently saw the Anita Hill documentary, and I'm excited for Carrie's confirmation on HBO. And again, this idea of why are we still talking about race? And then you have a case like this where you go, you can't separate it out. You cannot. This is okay. So, and to try to is pretending and is making something that doesn't exist. And yet, how do you tell the stories with the appropriate nuance that they deserve? Because these are topics that have so much nuance in them,
Yeah.
so much gray.
But how long have you been doing your show now?
You just finished year 2.
And you could go on for years. You
Years.
could go on for years, and so much gray, so much nuance. But our parents would never. I mean, I guess it began with, All in the Family and the
Jeffersons.
the Jeffersons and Sherman Helms. What was his last name?
Sherman Hemsley.
Sherman Helmsley would come over to to Archie Bunker's house, and that began it. We actually can see ourselves on the television and be just riveted. And now we see ourselves and we're riveted, and we're talking about all these wonderful topics that before was just like
So teeny.
but just to see that teeny bit of being talked about us made you feel so
Much.
Yeah. So it's such a part of.
Do you ever get, or I should say with this character, let me ask you, playing Johnny Cochran, do you ever get, I don't know if frightened is the right word, but do you ever have an overt sense of responsibility to do it the right way? As if there is a right way?
Right.
As if, because a wrong way could tell a wrong story or give a wrong message.
Right.
Is that a part of your work? Is that a part of your life in your work? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. No,
No.
I don't.
Can you tell me why?
Because I approach it so it's so important to me.
Which part's important to you?
The work.
Yeah.
And the portrayal. And so much of it is I pray that I do my best and then I jump in. And acting for me is problem solving. What is the obstacle? The obstacle this time was I don't know him. Everybody knows him. What do I do? How do I find my way in? I don't know him. I don't know
You don't know Johnny Cochran?
I don't know Johnny Cochran.
Never met him?
I met him, but that was years ago.
Gotcha.
Wasn't Googling
You weren't
him.
and you weren't character studying when you met him.
Of course, and didn't follow the trial. But now I have to play him.
Never done that.
Okay, so it's so what do you do? How do you? And so as I said, I did what I could in the time that I had, and then I said, whew. All I can do is try to catch his spirit, the spirit of the man. The stories, I knew the stories were phenomenal. The scripts were phenomenal. So if I can, and if I could just allow the audience to enter into the world, the story.
That was written on the page.
That was written on the page, which was phenomenal. They would forgive me any not being right on the money with him because they would be in the story by that time.
Right.
So I took the pressure off myself.
Did you have any opinions personally about O.J. Simpson and his guilt or innocence, and did that play anything in any way into how you played Johnny?
I didn't have an opinion about whether or not because to me, I was just focused on how do I go in. I mean, you can't understand how.
Yeah, you answered that.
How difficult that can be. In your mind, that again, everyone's watching, and what's he going to do? And especially on the first day. But I didn't. The fact of whether or not O.J. did it or not, that doesn't help
it doesn't,
me.
And that doesn't have anything to do with your process as an actor.
And on top of the fact that as a defense attorney, Johnny, they most times defense attorneys don't want to know anyway. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Don't tell me
because
whether or not you
your
did
job
it.
is to create a great case,
right?
And
poke holes. That's not mine. So it didn't serve any purpose. It didn't. I didn't spend any time.
Well, I had no opinion on Dre's guilt or
Guilt or
innocence,
innocence,
in choosing.
But you know, we all felt
He's
was.
guilty.
Yeah.
I know, he did it.
I love Nicole more than you can possibly imagine. She says she was the mother of my children. I didn't do it, John. I didn't do it. I couldn't have done it, I swear.
Do you remember your most challenging moment as an actor?
I have several.
Really? Tell me, Courtney.
Yes. I was, again, I see, Tracee, I approach acting as problem solving.
Right. I don't, by the way.
Okay. I do, by the way. So Tracee, I was, I couldn't figure out 6 degrees of separation I did that on stage for a year and a half. And for the first 8 months, I used to come in at 5 o'clock and run through the whole play.
By yourself?
By myself, about 2 or 3 times, because to feel comfortable. For 8 months, lost about 15 pounds until I could feel comfortable.
And when you
on
say
stage.
comfortable, do you mean feel like you're telling the truth?
I can stand out there and not worry about my lines. I'm gonna lose my place, and that everyone doesn't think I'm a fraud. And in my mind, this is all in my mind. There was another instance.
Well, that's a dangerous neighborhood as an actor.
There was another time I asked my wife to do, Angela Bassett, to do His Girl Friday at the Guthrie Theater. 200 pages, and the John Guare.
Your wife is Angela Bassett?
Yeah, she is.
I couldn't help it, sorry.
Yeah. She's good. And so I asked her to do this play with me. We'd never acted before, and we're playing husband and wife, His Girl Friday, and John Guare is internally cutting 8 pages every 4 days. So we learned all 200, and then he subsequently cut, and then we in 3 weeks, and then so by the time the Guthrie audience, about 300 people, first audience, saw the show, I knew barely my lines and barely my blocking. No interacting with people, no any of that, just barely my line. So every now and then I'd see a sliver of light. The rest of the time I was in complete darkness, complete fear. And so gradually the director, after, we knew I learned it in front of the audience. And 2 weeks of previews, we had 2 weeks of previews. And by the time we opened, initially the first preview, I had 20 pages of notes, then 19, 18, all the way down to, I had, two or three lines. And that knowing that I can survive that, if any other acting challenge comes up, I'm okay. I say in my mind, I've done the worst.
The worst.
Actors, I think, are the most courageous people to get in front of people and a lot of times not know what's going to happen and still
go with it.
What do you do? How do you get in front of people? What is it that, and Tracee, you and I both are shy people. Mm-hmm. So
I'm not anymore.
Yeah, but your base core.
My base core is shy.
Was shy, and you found your way through that into, and so much of the calmness comes with that you have done it enough so that you know what to expect and nothing can throw you.
Or you know not to expect.
You know not to expect. But what happens to that? But people who are starting out in the business who don't have the
I
grounding.
spent years of being terrified.
Right.
Years. And I think for me, the most challenging part of being an actor still is auditioning, or the element of that, because it's not acting. It's a very different skill, but it is a part of being an actor.
Right. And how do you go in? And because the basis of it is when we go to a play or we see a movie, we tell the audience, "I got you." Mm-hmm. So that's what when we go into a room, how do you tell the people, I got this, relax,
Well,
sit back,
I think it's the
put your
same
pencil
thing
down.
that's happened to me with my work in general, is that the challenge for me with auditioning growing up and starting off in the business was I had a person that I was privately that I didn't know how to share publicly. And I didn't know how to be the unzipped person when people are in front of me, because I thought there was something I was supposed to be or not supposed to be, or there was a perfect choice I was supposed to make, or I was supposed to make people laugh, or whatever that was. It was quite a journey to get to that. It all started with me. I couldn't do those things, those tricks people gave you. Pretend they're not wearing clothes, or it's your part to lose, or go in there to win the part, or this is your chance to play the role, or whatever that was. None of that stuff worked for me. So I gave myself the exercise of a feasible goal to go in there and take one conscious breath. Just one, and it didn't matter where it was in the audition. And that birthed a much larger ability to actually be completely present in the moment, in the room, which is the core of all my acting. So I don't problem solve, but I have a feeling that that's just that we use different language for the same thing. Because for me, it's all about how can I be honest? How am I telling the absolute truth in this moment, responding to what's happening, even if I'm responding to the fact that, and knowing that there's cameras there, and letting them go, but pretending they're not there. Any lie does not work for me with acting. So some of the most challenging moments for me are when I don't feel like I'm telling the truth. I get really upset. And then I have to work with myself to not be upset, because you can't get to the truth if you're upset, because you're shut down and the whole thing happens. So even in a character that I've known forever, I find it very frustrating and challenging when I get to a place where what I'm saying doesn't feel true. I remember there was a moment on Girlfriends when I had to do a physical comedy bit. And even with physical comedy, I have to be telling the truth. I can't pretend I'm falling, I have to fall. And I'm one of those actors. Like, it has to be real for me or I feel like a fraud. And then of course there's the sweaty moments in any work environment, even on Blackish, when you have a lot of words, you feel like you know them, but for some reason you're not present and you can't get it out. And then by the third time you're trying it, you're sweating because you know how many people it's just awful. It's just awful. And you know, and then you do that thing like, I know this. Like you want to tell everyone you know the line. It's awful. Or when you're like, I knew it when it wasn't my coverage. And it was so awful. And you just get so sweaty and you just feel like the worst, dumbest person. Like, the only thing in my job is to know my lines, and I can't even know my lines. Like, it's just, even thinking about it makes me sweaty. It's just awful. It's awful.
You're drowning in the water to get higher.
Yeah. And then the moment comes that I get to go home and my head hits the pillow in a good way, hopefully, because sometimes it doesn't, where you do finally get it. And you think to yourself, in front of cameras, in front of people, I literally came above my biggest demons, because in those moments, the language that starts in your head, what you start telling yourself, no matter how much work you've done, no matter how much anything you're proud of, you might be a great father, it doesn't matter. What happens in your head is you become the worst piece of poop that ever hit the planet. And when you get above it and do it anyway and do work that you feel good about, that feels like the truth, I literally feel like, I'm like, oh God, I deserve a French fry. like I deserve a French fry or a bag of potato chips.